Revenge with Karen.
You know that feeling when you realize your entire professional existence is worth less to your boss than a buy one, get one sandwich at a gas station? That was me last Tuesday. 10 years. I have given Crosspoint Software a decade of my life. I have missed my niece's piano recitals to fix Gantt charts that Steve broke because he thought dependencies were optional. Have smoothed over client calls where Steve promised features that don't exist in this dimension or the next. I have essentially been the WD-40, keeping this rusty, squealing machine from seizing up since the Obama administration. And what was the grand celebration? A mandatory 2 p.m. gathering in the break room, which, for the record, smells permanently like microwave tilapia and dashed dreams. Steve, the regional director of Looking Busy, linked a plastic fork against a Diet Coke can to get everyone's attention. He was wearing that navy blue blazer he thinks makes him look like a tech mogul, but actually makes him look like a divorced magician. All right, team, gather round, Steve boomed, flashing that smile that never quite reaches his dead, shark-like eyes. Today is a big day, a huge day. We are celebrating a milestone. Teresa here has been with us for 10 years. There was a smattering of applause, mostly from the junior devs who I've saved from being fired, and from Chloe, my mentee, who looked like she wanted to throw her laptop at Steve's head on my behalf. 10 years, Steve continued, putting a heavy hand on my shoulder. I flinched internally. That's loyalty, that's grit. And to show our appreciation for everything you do, Teresa, keeping the trains running, right? We got you a little something. He reached into his jacket pocket. I wasn't expecting a Rolex. I wasn't even expecting a bonus because Steve had been crying poverty about the department budget for 6 months. But I expected dignity, maybe a plaque, a handwritten note. He handed me a small, flimsy envelope. I opened it. It was a Starbucks gift card. I looked at the back, written in Sharpie in the amount box, $10, $10, $1 per year. I looked up at Steve. He was beaming, waiting for me to perform gratitude. Spend it all in one place. He chuckled, looking around the room for laughter. Nobody laughed. Even the HR rep looked at her shoes. Thanks, Steve, I said. My voice was steady, but inside a bridge was burning. A massive structural suspension bridge made of patience was collapsing into a river of gasoline. This is really something. Only the best for our MVP, he said, slapping my back before diving toward the sheet cake, generic vanilla slab that had congratulatoins sick written in runny blue icing. If you've ever had a boss make you feel like a piece of office furniture, he's considering selling on Craigslist. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and give this a like. It really helps the team, and honestly, it's the only validation I'm getting this week since my decade of service is apparently worth 2 lattes. Thanks, guys. I walked back to my desk, gift card burning a hole in my pocket. I didn't scream. I didn't flip a table. I'm a project coordinator. We don't make messes, we clean them up. But as I sat down, I saw an email notification flash on my screen. It was a company-wide blast. Subject: Important Announcement, Acquisition News. Crosspoint Software was being acquired by Helix Dynamics, a massive parent company. And the email stated that the transition team, led by a CEO named Adrian Lee, would be on site starting next week to evaluate operational efficiency and leadership redundancy. I looked at the $10 card next to my keyboard. Then I looked at the email. Steve came strolling past my cubicle, a piece of cake on a paper plate in one hand, his phone in the other. Big news, huh, Teresa? Don't worry, I'll handle the transition. You just keep doing what you do. The paperwork off my desk so I can focus on the big picture with the new overlords. Of course, Steve, I said. I'll keep everything organized. He didn't hear the tone. He never does. He thinks I'm the office Roomba, quiet, automatic, and incapable of recording data. He's wrong. I opened my locked drawer. Inside wasn't snacks or gym clothes. It was a hard drive. See, for 10 years, Steve has been playing fast and loose with the budget. Client dinners that were actually his family vacations. Consulting fees paid to his brother-in-law for IT work that never happened. Executive lounge upgrades totaling $50,000 last quarter, while he denied our request for dual monitors. I had saved every invoice, every contradictory email, every approved expense report he thought was buried in the archives. I picked up the Starbucks card. $10, I whispered to the empty air, swiveled my chair to my monitors. I didn't open my current project. I opened a new folder and titled it, Transition Documentation Do Not Delete. Then I started dragging files. Steve thinks he bought my loyalty for $10. What he actually bought was a front row ticket to his own audit. The new CEO, Adrian Lee, has a reputation for cutting bloated middle management. Steve is about to find out just how bloated he really is. The game is on. Steve and I'm not playing for coffee anymore. The office energy shifted overnight. Monday morning smelled like fear and floor wax. With Adrian Lee and the Helix Dynamics transition team arriving in 3 days, Steve had entered a state of manic delusion I like to call the pig and the lipstick protocol. Suddenly, things that hadn't mattered for 5 years were emergencies. The dusty plants in the lobby, replaced. The flickering light in the hallway, fixed by a confused electrician. Steve seemingly pulled off the street. He was running around the office with the sweaty desperation of a man who forgot to study for a final exam that determines whether he keeps his house. Teresa, he barked at 8:15 a.m., looming over my cubicle divider. He smelled like aggressive cologne and anxiety sweat. I need you to pull the Q3 and Q4 project summaries and the efficiency metrics. We need to build a deck. A big deck. Something that screams world-class innovation. We have the summaries, Steve, I said, not looking up from my email. They're in the shared drive. The ones showing we're 15% over budget on the alpha rollout because of that vendor change you authorized. He twitched. Right, about that. We need to massage the narrative. The new CEO, Adrian, she's a numbers person, but she doesn't know the context. I need you to rework the slides. The vendor overages under R&D expansion or legacy system maintenance. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. You want me to reclassify cost overruns as research investments. It's all part of the same pot, Teresa. He laughed, a nervous, hacking sound. Don't get bogged down in the accounting weeds. Just make it look green. I need that deck by tomorrow morning. I have a vision meeting with Adrian's advance team. Sure, Steve, I said. Get right on that. I didn't say no. You never say no to a man like Steve when he's panicking. You say yes, and then you document the request. I spent the rest of the day building 2 slide decks. DECA was the truth. It showed the spiraling costs, the delayed timelines caused by Steve's indecision, and the massive payouts to consultants who did nothing. Deck B was Steve's fantasy. It was full of buzzwords like synergy and paradigm shifts, with graphs that went up and to the right for no reason other than I changed the y-axis scale to hide the dip. At 4:30 p.m., Steve marched into my office. Let's see it. I pulled up Deck B. He nodded, scrolling through the slides. Excellent, see, this looks like a department that's lean and mean. Oh, delete that slide about the server migration delay. And change the leadership travel line item to client acquisition costs. Steve, I said, keeping my voice level, if we change that, it won't match the invoices in the finance system. If they audit, they won't audit the line items in the first week, Teresa. He snapped, his face flushing red. They're looking at the big picture. Stop being such a pessimist and be a team player. Just make the changes. Okay, I said. I'll send the final version to your inbox. He patted my desk, leaving a smudge. That's why you're my rock, T-Bone. 10 more years, right? Waddled away to his corner office to practice his executive presence in the mirror. I saved the fraudulent Deck B and emailed it to him. But then, I did something else. I went into the version history of the file. I took a screenshot of the metadata showing exactly when the changes were made, and by whom me, but logged under his urgent directive, which I had him confirm via Slack message 5 minutes prior just to be clear on the edits. Then, opened the folder for the upcoming audit prep that the new parent company had set up. It was a restricted folder, but as senior coordinator, I had upload access. I didn't upload Steve's fantasy deck. I uploaded the raw data files. The unedited, ugly, bleeding red Excel sheets that showed exactly where the money had gone. I named the file Q3Q for raw data source, do not edit XLSX, and buried it inside a subfolder titled Legacy Archives. It was a breadcrumb. Adrian Lee is a numbers person, Steve said. Good. Numbers people dig. And when she digs, she's going to find that the beautiful pie chart Steve presents tomorrow is made entirely of lies and expense reports from the Four Seasons. As I left the office that evening, I saw Steve in the conference room, practicing his handshake with an empty chair. He looked confident. He looked like a man who thought he had successfully painted over the mold. Didn't realize I had just handed the building inspector a flashlight. Wednesday arrived, and with it, the Helix Dynamics entourage. Adrian Lee walked in like a weather front, cool, precise, and impossible to ignore. She was flanked by two assistants who looked like they ate spreadsheets for breakfast. Steve was vibrating at a frequency usually reserved for chihuahuas during a thunderstorm. His strategy, I quickly realized, was divide and conquer. Specifically, divide me from the new leadership so he could conquer the narrative. Teresa, Steve said, stopping by my desk at 9 a.m. He was holding a stack of files against his chest like a shield. Listen, regarding the strategy lunch with Adrian today, I think it's best if you sit this one out. Stay here and man the fort. We don't want to overwhelm them with too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Plus, someone needs to make sure the printers don't jam. I'm the senior project coordinator. I built the strategy they were discussing. But sure, I'll watch the printers. Understood, Steve, I said, putting on my best compliant employee face. You handle the big picture. He looked relieved. Exactly. Oh, and if anyone asks, that delay on the Delta project? Just mention that the team was struggling with the new coding language. We don't need to bore them with the details of the approval holdups. Blame the devs. Got it. Winked and rushed off. I watched him go, marveling at how he managed to throw an entire department under the bus before he'd even had his morning coffee. An hour later, I was deep in a spreadsheet when a young woman in a sharp gray suit appeared at my cubicle. It was one of Adrian's aides. Hi, she said. I'm Sarah from Ops. Steve mentioned in the briefing that he handles all the primary workflow mapping, but I noticed your name is on. Well, literally every document in the repository. I smiled. It was the smile of a tiger watching a gazelle limp. Steve is very hands-on, I lied smoothly. But yes, I manage the execution details. Sarah tapped her tablet. Adrian likes to get a ground floor view. Would you mind if I shadowed you for an hour, just to see how the data flows? I'd be delighted, I said. Pull up a chair. For the next 60 minutes, I put on a masterclass. I didn't say a single bad word about Steve. I didn't have to. I just let the work speak. So Sarah asked, pointing to a red flag on the dashboard, why is this vendor payment 6 weeks late? Oh, I said, pulling up the log. I prepared the invoice on the 1st. It's currently sitting in the director approval queue. It's been there for 44 days. The director approval queue? That's Steve? Yes. He's very busy, I said, sweet as peach tea. He has a lot of off-site meetings. Sarah frowned and made a note. And this scheduling conflict? It looks like the engineering team was double booked. Correct, I nodded. I flagged the conflict in Outlook 3 times. Here are the decline notifications. I opened a folder labeled Steve Schedule Overrides. Steve felt it was important to push for the aggressive timeline, so he overrode the capacity warnings. Sarah repeated, her typing speed increasing. The result? We missed the deadline by 3 weeks and paid $12,000 in overtime, I said simply. But the team really rallied. Sarah stopped typing. She looked at me. Then she looked at the chaos of sticky notes on Steve's glass wall across the room, visible from my desk, where he had written Synergy in giant red letters. Does he know how to use the project management software? She asked quietly. I took a sip of my water. He prefers to lead through verbal inspiration. Sarah closed her tablet. That was eye-opening. Thank you, Teresa. Anytime, Sarah. I'm just here to help. Later that afternoon, I walked past the conference room. Steve was standing at the head of the table, waving his arms, pointing at a slide that I knew for a fact contained made-up numbers. Adrian was sitting perfectly still, watching him. Then I saw her look down at her phone. Sarah had just sent her a message. Adrian read it, looked up at Steve. For the first time, her expression changed. It wasn't a smile. It was the look of a mechanic who just realized the used car they're looking at has sawdust in the transmission. Steve kept talking, oblivious. He thought he was charming the new boss. He didn't know that the printer lady had just handed over the keys to the crime scene. Thursday morning, the air in the office was thin. Adrian's team wasn't just observing anymore, they were auditing. Could hear the clicking of calculators from the conference room down the hall. Steve was sweating through his second shirt of the day by 10 a.m. He called me into his office and shut the door. The blinds were drawn, which is never a good sign. Teresa, sit, he said, pacing behind his desk. We have a small hiccup. The finance team from Helix is asking for a breakdown of the external consulting budget. I knew exactly what he was talking about. The contract with Apex Solutions. Right. Apex, Steve waved his hand dismissively. Great guys, critical work. Steve, I said, clasping my hands in my lap. Apex is your brother-in-law's company. They invoice us $4,500 a month for IT optimization. We have an internal IT department. What exactly are they optimizing? It's high-level strategy, Teresa. You wouldn't see it on the daily logs, he snapped, wiping his forehead with a fast food napkin. The point is the margins look lopsided. I need you to go into the expense report for Q3 and reallocate some of those costs. Spread them out. Put some under training, some under hardware. Just smooth it out so it doesn't look like a lump sum. He was asking me to commit fraud, plain and simple. He wanted me to launder his nepotism through the general ledger. I looked him in the eye. I can't do that, Steve. He stopped pacing. Excuse me? The expense codes are locked once the quarter closes. To change them now, I'd have to file a correction request with finance, and that flags an automatic review. If I move that money, it looks like I made the mistake. I am giving you a direct order. He slammed his hand on the desk. A bobblehead of himself, yes, he is one, wobbled aggressively. Figure it out. Adrian sees a $15,000 line item for consulting with no deliverables attached. She's going to ask questions I don't want to answer. I understand, I said calmly. But I won't touch the historical data. It's against compliance. Steve stared at me. He looked like he wanted to fire me on the spot. But he couldn't. He didn't know where the files were. He didn't know the passwords. He didn't know how to turn on the coffee machine without help. Fine, he hissed. I'll do it myself. I have admin access. You do, I agreed. You certainly do. He shooed me out of the office. I walked back to my desk and immediately opened my email. I drafted a message to myself, a timestamped note detailing the conversation, verbatim. 10:14 a.m. Steve requested reallocation of Apex Solutions funds. Request denied due to compliance violation. Then I watched the system logs. At 10:30 a.m., modification alert popped up. Steve was in the ledger. He was clumsy. He moved $5,000 to employee education and $5,000 to software licensing. He thought he was hiding the trail. What he actually did was trigger a mismatch with the vendor tax IDs. You can't pay a software license fee to a company registered as a sole proprietorship for consulting services without the system throwing a red flag. I saw the flag appear on the back end. It was a silent alarm, blinking red in the finance database. I could have fixed it. I could have called finance and told them it was a coding error. That's what I would have done 2 years ago. That's what the loyal Teresa would have done. Instead, I took a sip of my lukewarm coffee and let it blink. 10 minutes later, I received an email from the Helix finance lead, copied to Adrian Lee. Subject, urgent discrepancy in Q3 ledger to Steve. From Helix Finance. Steve, just noticed a manual override on the ledger entries regarding Apex Solutions. The tax ID doesn't match the expense category. Can you explain why these funds were moved this morning? We are pulling the original invoices now. I looked over the partition. Steve was staring at his screen, his face the color of old oatmeal. He looked up and caught my eye. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just raised my $10 Starbucks card slightly, like a toast, took another sip. He scrambled to type a reply. I could almost hear his brain misfiring. He was about to lie to the people who sign his paycheck, and he had just left a digital fingerprint the size of a billboard. The trap wasn't set by me. It was set by his own greed. I just refused to disarm it. Steve was wounded, and a wounded animal bites. On Friday morning, the target wasn't me. He knew I was too dangerous now. Went for the weakest link in the chain, Chloe. Chloe is 24, brilliant, and terrifyingly anxious. She's the kind of employee who apologizes when you bump into her. I was in the break room getting water when I heard Steve's voice booming from the hallway. He had cornered Adrian and was gesturing wildly toward the open bullpen where Chloe sat. It's really a training issue, I heard Steve say, loud enough for half the floor to hear. Been trying to get the junior staff up to speed, but the GDPR compliance update, that dropped the ball. I delegated it to Chloe weeks ago, and she just sat on it. It's unfortunate, but that's the talent pool we're working with. Adrian listened, her face unreadable. A GDPR miss is a serious liability, Steve. That's a six-figure fine risk. I know, Steve sighed, acting the martyr. I'm cleaning it up now. But you know how it is. Can't micromanage everything. I walked back to my desk. Chloe was visibly shaking, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at me. Teresa, he never told me. SHH, I said softy. Did he send you the request? No, he never said a word about GDPR. I thought legal handled that. Okay, I sat down. Do not cry. He wants you to cry. We don't cry, we forward. I opened my archives. I searched GDPR. I found it. 6 weeks ago. An email from legal sent to Steve marked high importance. Subject, Action required GDPR compliance update. Body, Steve, this needs your signature and review by the 15th. Do not delegate this to junior staff as it requires director-level authorization. Steve had opened the email, receipt confirmed. He had never replied. He had never forwarded it to Chloe. He had simply ignored it, probably because he was too busy planning his networking golf trip. I hit forward. I addressed it to Steve. I CC'd Adrian Lee. I CC'd the head of legal. I CC'd Chloe. Subject, GDPR compliance clarification on timeline. Steve, I believe there is some confusion regarding the GDPR delay discussed this morning. Please see the attached email thread from legal dated 6 weeks ago, explicitly stating that this task required director-level signature and was not to be delegated to junior staff. According to the server logs, this email was opened by you on the 12th, but no action was taken. Chloe does not have the clearance level to access these files, as per your own security protocol memo attached. I have the compliance forms ready for your signature now to mitigate the risk. Let me know when you are ready to sign. Best, Teresa. I hit send. Sound of the mouse click felt like a gavel banging. 3 minutes later, Steve's office door flew open. He stormed out, looking for me. But then he saw Adrian standing by Chloe's desk, reading something on her phone. Adrian looked up. She looked at Steve, then she looked at Chloe. Chloe, Adrian said, her voice surprisingly gentle. Don't worry about the compliance issue. It seems there was a communication error at the leadership level. Go grab a coffee. Steve froze in the middle of the hallway. He looked at me. I was typing away, looking incredibly busy. He marched over to my desk, lowering his voice to a hiss. You CC'd the CEO? Are you out of your mind? We keep this inside the family, Teresa. I finally looked up. Chloe is the family, Steve. You're just the landlord, and you're neglecting the property. You're playing a dangerous game, he spat, his face purple. I'm not playing, Steve, I said, pointing to my monitor. I'm coordinating. That's what you pay me for, or, well, that's what you pay me $10 for. He recoiled like I'd slapped him. He realized then that I wasn't just incompetent or lazy, which were his usual excuses for people. He realized I was hostile. He backed away, retreating to his office. I saw Adrian watching the interaction from across the room. She didn't intervene. She was gathering data points, had just given her a critical one. The director blames his subordinates for his own negligence. Strike two, Steve. By Monday, the atmosphere in the office was brittle as dry ice. The rumor mill was churning. Helix Dynamics was making cuts. The question was, were they cutting the fat or the muscle? Adrian announced an open queue and a lunch for Tuesday. No topic off limits, the invite said. Transparency is key. Steve, naturally, viewed transparency as a mortal threat. He called an emergency prep meeting for the senior staff, excluding me, of course. But walls in our office are thin, and Steve has a voice that carries like a foghorn. Okay, I heard him telling the 2 other managers. When Adrian opens the floor, we need softballs. Mike, you ask about their vision for international expansion. Jen, you ask about, I don't know, synergy. Just keep the microphone away from the support staff. Don't need complaints about the coffee machine clogging up the strategic dialogue. He was scripting the town hall. He wanted a play, not a meeting. I sat at my desk, looking at the confidential folder I had been building. It was full. Vendor overpayments, the GDPR negligence, the timestamps of him leaving at 2 p.m. on Fridays while the team worked until 8. The $10 gift card receipt. Yes, I scanned it. I didn't want to make a scene. Screaming matches are for reality TV. I wanted precision. I saw Adrian walking through the bullpen late that afternoon. She was alone, reviewing notes on a tablet. This was it. I waited until she passed my row. I stood up holding a plain manila folder. Miss Lee, she stopped and turned. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Teresa, the project coordinator, right? Yes, ma'am. Sarah from Ops speaks highly of you. Says you know where the bodies are buried. I don't bury bodies, Miss Lee, I said, offering a small, tight smile. I just file the death certificates. I held out the folder. Steve asked us to prepare some materials for the transition. He wanted to make sure you saw the highlight reel. I thought you might want the raw footage instead, for context. She looked at the folder. Then she looked at me. Is this going to ruin my dinner? It might clarify your lunch tomorrow, I said. She took it. Thank you, Teresa. Just doing my job. I sat back down. I didn't tell her what was in it. I didn't rant about Steve. I just handed over the ammunition. The next morning, the day of the Q&A, Steve was manic. He was arranging chairs, checking the microphone, sweating through his 3rd suit of the week. Everyone remember the plan. He whispered loudly to the team. Positive vibes, future-focused. He came up to me. Teresa, why don't you sit in the back? Maybe help with the catering. Make sure the soda doesn't run out. Sure, Steve, I said. I'll be right in the back, good girl. He actually said good girl, like I was a golden retriever that had just learned not to pee on the rug. I walked to the back of the room near the soda coolers. I watched the staff file in. I saw Adrienne enter, holding her tablet and the manila folder. She placed it on the table in front of her, face down. Steve started the meeting. He was booming, charming, laughing too hard at his own jokes. He introduced Adrienne with a speech that was 80% adjectives and 0% substance. And now, Steve beamed, I'll hand it over to our new leader, Adrienne Lee, for some questions. Who wants to start? Mike, I think you had a question. Mike, looking hostage-stricken, raised his hand. Yes, can you tell us about the international synergy? I leaned against the back wall, sipping a Diet Coke. Steve looked triumphant, thought he was conducting an orchestra. He didn't notice Adrienne's hand resting on the folder. He didn't notice that she hadn't answered Mike's question yet. She was just looking at Steve. The stage was set, the lights were on, and the trapdoor was about to open. The cue and it was dragging on. Adrienne answered the softball questions politely, but her eyes kept drifting to Steve, who was practically vibrating with self-satisfaction. He thought he had pulled it off, thought the positive vibes shield was holding. We were wrapping up. People were starting to eye the sandwich platters. One last thing, Steve announced, stepping back to the microphone. I just want to say how proud I am of this team. We're a family here. We take care of each other. He scanned the room, looking for prop. His eyes landed on me in the back. Take Teresa, for example. Every head turned. I froze. Oh no. Don't do it, Steve. Don't drag me into your theater. Teresa just hit her 10-year anniversary. Steve boomed. 10 years. Stand up, Teresa. I stayed leaning against the wall. I didn't wave. We recognized her just last week, Steve continued, oblivious to the temperature dropping in the room. He turned to Adrienne, grinning. We believe in rewarding loyalty here. Small tokens of appreciation go a long way, right? He chuckled. So, Teresa, did you ever use that coffee card I gave you? Buy yourself a double-shot espresso on the company? It was a throwaway line, a joke. He expected me to say, not yet, Steve, or sure did. He expected the prop to speak its line. The room was silent. Adrienne looked at me. She wasn't smiling. I pushed off the wall. I walked forward a few steps, just enough to be seen clearly by everyone. Actually, Steve, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but in the dead silence, it carried like a bell. I didn't use it. Steve's smile faltered slightly. Oh, saving it for a rainy day. I looked directly at Adrienne. I gave it to your new boss, I said. Steve blinked. What? I gave it to Miss Lee, I continued, my voice steady, cold, and absolutely clear. I included it in the folder I gave her yesterday, along with the receipt. Steve looked at the manila folder under Adrienne's hand. He went pale. I told her, I said, a $10 gift card for 10 years of service perfectly illustrates your department's budget priorities, especially when compared to the $50,000 spent on the executive lounge renovation last month. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was a vacuum. It sucked the air out of the room. You could hear the hum of the vending machine in the hallway. Steve's mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. Now, Teresa, that's a mischaracterization. Adrienne spoke. She didn't stand up, she just tapped the folder. I reviewed the contents of this folder last night, Steve, and Teresa is right. The math is illuminating. She looked at the Starbucks card, which she slid out of the folder and placed on the table. The little plastic card looked absurdly bright against the dark wood. $10, Adrienne said, for a decade. She looked up at Steve. Is this how you value your assets, Steve, or is this just how you value the people who hide your liabilities? Steve looked at me. There was no anger in his eyes anymore, just terror. I didn't smirk, I didn't gloat. I just took a sip of my Diet Coke. I think I'll take that sandwich now, I said, and I walked out of the room. Behind me, the murmurs exploded. I heard Steve stammering, trying to backtrack, trying to spin. But it was over. You can't spin gravity. I walked back to my desk, sat down. For the first time in 10 years, I felt light. I didn't need the coffee. The adrenaline was plenty. The rest of the afternoon was a study in slow-motion demolition. Steve didn't come back to his office after the lunch. Adrienne did. She walked straight into the conference room with the head of HR and closed the door. 10 minutes later, Steve was summoned. He walked past my desk looking like he was marching to the gallows. He didn't look at me. He was staring at the carpet, his face a blotchy map of regret. The office went into bunker mode. Nobody worked. Everyone was on Slack, typing furiously to each other. Did you see his face? Did she really say that about the lounge? Is he getting fired right now? I just kept working. I had a project timeline to update. Around 3 o'clock p.m., the door opened. Steve walked out. He wasn't holding his blazer. He wasn't holding his phone. He was holding a small cardboard box. He was escorted by a security guard. Not dragged, not shoved. Just supervised. He stopped at his office door. The guard stood behind him while he packed his personal items. The bobblehead, a framed photo of himself golfing, a stress ball. He tried to log into his computer. Access denied, the screen beeped. He tried again. Access denied. He looked around the room. He looked at the team he had bullied, gaslighted, and ignored. Nobody made eye contact. Chloe was intensely studying a blank piece of paper. Mike was staring at the ceiling. Then he looked at me. I was the only one looking back. I didn't wave. I didn't flip him off. I just nodded. Acknowledgement. Goodbye, Steve. He grabbed his box and walked to the elevator. The doors closed. The ding of the elevator was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. 5 minutes later, an email hit everyone's inbox. From Adrian Lee, subject: Leadership Update Team, effective immediately. Steve is no longer with Crosspoint Software. We thank him for his contributions. During this transition period, all project approvals and operational questions should be directed to the transition team. Please continue your good work. Contributions, I whispered. Corporate speak for the mess he left behind. Sarah, Adrian's aide, appeared at my desk. Teresa, Adrian would like to see you, in Steve's, excuse me, in the director's office. I stood up. My legs felt a little shaky, but I smoothed my skirt. I walked into the corner office. It still smelled like Steve's cologne, but the desk was bare. The sticky notes were gone. The synergy writing on the glass wall seemed pathetic now. Adrian was standing by the window, looking out at the parking lot. He's gone, she said, not turning around. I saw, I said. She turned. She looked tired. I went through the raw data you provided. The files in the legacy folder. Mails you forwarded. She paused. It's a disaster, Teresa. The budget is a fiction. The timelines are hallucinations. He was running a Ponzi scheme with company time. I know, I said. I've been trying to patch the leaks with duct tape for 5 years. Why didn't you leave, she asked. Someone with your documentation skills, you could have gone anywhere. I liked the work, I said honestly. I liked the team. I liked the clients. I just didn't like the obstruction. Adrian nodded. She sat on the edge of the desk, Steve's desk. Well, the obstruction is gone, but the mess remains. She looked at me intensely. I'm going to be honest. Usually in an acquisition like this, when a department is this mismanaged, we gut it. We fire the leadership, we lay off the support staff, and we start over. My heart sank. Was this it? Was I going down with the ship I just torpedoed? But she continued, you didn't let the ship sink. You kept the records, protected the junior staff. You kept the clients happy despite the chaos. She picked up something from the desk. It was the Starbucks card. She slid it across the mahogany surface toward me. I can't cash this, she said. It's unethical for me to accept gifts from employees. I looked at the card. But she said, a small smile finally touching her lips. I can offer a trade. A trade? I asked. I need an interim director, Adrian said. Someone who knows where the bodies are buried, and more importantly, how to exhume them and give them a proper burial so we can move on. I need someone to clean up this mess. Officially, with the authority to actually do it. I stared at her. You want me to take Steve's job? I want you to take the job Steve should have been doing, she corrected. We'll do a 6-month trial. Title bump. Salary adjustment, significant adjustment, a mandate to restructure the team as you see fit. She gestured to the glass wall, looking out at the bullpen. Chloe needs a mentor, not a scapegoat. The engineers need a schedule that obeys the laws of physics. The company needs the truth. She looked back at me. Do you want it? I looked at the empty chair behind the desk. I thought about the 10 years of late nights, the missed recitals, the gaslighting, the $10 card. I thought about the feeling of silencing the room yesterday. I have one condition, I said. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Negotiating already? Good. No appreciation parties with grocery store cake, I said, and no gift cards. If the team does well, we pay them. If they work late, we pay them. We treat them like adults, not campers. Adrian smiled, a real one this time. She extended her hand. Deal, no gift cards, just the work. I shook her hand. It was firm. I'll start with the GDPR compliance, I said, and I'm canceling the contract with Apex Solutions within the hour. Music to my ears, she said. The office is yours, Teresa. I walked out of the office. Sarah was waiting outside. How did it go? We have some work to do, I said. Come by my desk in 10. We're going to audit the vendor list. I walked back to my cubicle, my old cubicle, to pack up. Saw the $10 Starbucks card sitting on my keyboard where I had left it. I picked it up. I walked over to the break room. Chloe was there making tea. She looked nervous. Is everything okay? She asked. With Steve gone, are we all in trouble? No, I said. We're fine. Better than fine. I held out the card. Here, I said, go get yourself a coffee. A venti. Put whatever sugary syrup you want in it. Really? But wasn't this your anniversary gift? It's not a gift, I said. It's a relic from a previous administration. She took it, smiling. Thanks, Teresa. You're the best. Get back to work, Chloe, I said gently. We have a department to rebuild. I walked back toward the corner office. I peeled the Synergy sticky note off the glass wall and crumpled it into a ball. I tossed it into the trash can. It landed perfectly, nothing but net. I sat down in the big chair. It was comfortable. I opened my email. To all staff from Teresa, interim director subject, next steps. I started typing. The bridge didn't burn down, I just burned the toll booth, and now traffic was finally moving. So that's how I turned a $10 insult into a promotion and ousted the king of incompetence. Moral of the story, keep your receipts, document everything, and never, ever underestimate the woman who knows the passwords. Cheers.
Well, that was a ride.
Yeah.
Um, People never stop surprising me. Appreciate you sticking around to the end.